don't be late. Arbitrate to enhance your state. Adjudication is your road to salvation. Hunt ADI is your destination.
Today I'm really pleased to be joined by Matt Molloy, who I think we've probably known each other on and off for about 20 years, if not longer. So welcome along, Matt.
Yeah, no, welcome. Well, thank you for inviting me, Greg. Good to see you as ever. Yeah, I'm trying to work out probably the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators.
Yeah, I think that's probably where
when
it
you
started.
were there. It was probably the first time we came into contact, and then Cedar, and now Hunt ADR.
Yeah. I think I remember you initially for being someone I could talk to football about.
I didn't think you were going to mention that today, of all days.
There's not many times where I can speak to a West Ham fan, and as a Liverpool fan, we're both feeling the same.
Yeah, don't worry. We're playing each other next Sunday. I'm hoping that PSV will have softened you up on Wednesday, and that you won't be too angry and wounded from last weekend's exploits.
I have to be careful in my house because my wife's a West Ham fan. So I have to clear. Obviously I want us to win, but 1-0 will be fine.
Yeah, I'll take 1-0 defeat as well.
Yeah, we're all three kids are all Liverpool fans, and they're not quite as I suppose empathetic as I am. So they'll be saying no, 5-0, 6-0, 7-0.
They'll learn.
Yeah.
I don't know how old they are, Greg.
Well, I was going to say they're like in the 20s, so they should.
Okay. Well, if they're still on the payroll, then they should be more diplomatic, perhaps.
Now, talking about being diplomatic, I noticed a couple of weeks ago that you've been made master of the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators. So I thought, well, let's get him on and talk about that. So, do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, my involvement with the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators is probably about the same time that I've been involved with you. And actually, the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, I think, were instrumental in the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators coming into existence and becoming a livery company. So, I won't. Go into too much detail, but the livery movement effectively is a guild. It's the guilds of the City of London, and there are some very old companies which are sort of 700-800 years old of the sort of paviors or grocers and armourers and things like that. And the arbitrators were part of a group of companies in the sort of 70s, 80s that were formed in response to, I think, a view at the time that some of the livery companies didn't actually represent the modern City of London, which was more professional and financial services. So the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators said, well, look, arbitration in terms of London and the UK widely is a centre, and we should be represented. So there were. The solicitors didn't have a company, so then the solicitors, surveyors, engineers, architects, accountants, investment bankers, world traders, arbitrators all came in a sort of, and there's a group of us that were given livery status, and I think I suppose the idea is that each company promotes its profession. In inverted commas, in the context of the city and the UK more widely. There's a certain civic function because the City of London Corporation is actually an authority and in its own right, a very wealthy authority, probably because of the business rates that it can attract from the square mile. So there's if you like, there's a civic function that the livery companies perform in terms of appointing the Lord or now the Lady Mayor, the sheriffs who reside at the Old Bailey, and then the City of London Corporation has its own administrative function. so that we take part in terms of the election of the mayor, the sheriffs, etc. In terms of the actual role of the company, it's very much fellowship and collegiality. However, there are, in addition to the sort of civic functions, there's charitable endeavours, and we have a trust that is available for people to apply for support, subject to the objects. We also have a sort of not an educational in terms of you don't come to the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators to learn how to be an arbitrator. It's more a case of helping the members understand other areas, because arbitration operates across a number of industries that have specific peculiarities, if you like, or features. So, for example, maritime, family, insurance, banking, construction, which is obviously the area that I work in.
And is it open to sort of mediators, adjudicators?
Yeah, it's very much now. It's promotion of private dispute resolution. So what the way you look in terms of members are some of the older companies, it's lineage, so you're born into it. Now we're very much not like that. But you need to be proposed and seconded by someone who's clothed in the livery. But the idea is that there's a connection with private dispute resolution and London. So either through work or residence in London, or and then the private dispute resolution. So our membership tends to be not exclusively people who sit as arbitrators, adjudicators, mediators, but we do have those. But it will be people who act as expert witnesses, party representatives. So we have a cross section of people and industries. And some people will be members of other livery companies as well. So, and that's not uncommon. And in terms of the master's role, that's effectively the figurehead or leader. But there's a sort of a 3-year running for us. So there's a senior warden, junior warden, and so I've gone through that sort of process. And you're in office for a year, and you're attached to. Or you're allocated effectively to the current mayor in your year. So for us, it's Dame Susan Langley. So she's the third female mayor. She's the first lady mayor to use that title.
Right.
And it's for me, on a personal note, it's great to be associated with her or allocated to her in her year. One, because she's a West Ham fan and she's born in the East End. So for the Lady Mayor's show, for the first time, there was a Premier League football club. Yeah. Probably might not be able to say that for too much longer, but on the Lady Mayor's show, which we walked as well. So that's quite nice. Yeah, and her role is really the ambassador for the City of London and the UK. To promote the services that London and UK provide. So some of that will be external, international visits and that type of thing. But she's very much an ambassadorial role, and she also has charitable sort of objects as well. So yeah, I mean it's in terms of what we do with the arbitrators, yes, we have an education and membership committees. We're looking to sort of provide sort of certain events. We do have some formal events, and it's quite interesting speaking to some of the newer, what I call the people who've grown up in the dress down culture, working from home culture, actually seem to quite enjoy the formality of some of our white tie, black tie things, and we have 3 sort of events. It's quite interesting, and some of the traditions are, quite quaint. Is that the right word? Bonkers, antiquated. I don't know, but they're sort of fun. You don't take yourself too seriously. Yeah. Very rewarding, and I was surprised actually how much of an effect it would have once I was in post. I thought, like a lot of these things, you just get on. It's just you'll take it in your stride. But there's sort of waking up the next morning to sort of think, well, actually, it's a real privilege, and I'm just honoured to be being chosen to go forward, and very much looking forward to embracing the year. In order to, I mean, it's not all dinners and functions, but there's a fair amount of that. I sort of joked last week. It's nice to wear normal clothes for a change, because the first week I was ending up with obviously the installation, but then, which was a formal dinner, but the next week it was a Garden of Remembrance service. So dressed then was a bowler hat for me, which so I had to purchase on Amazon to acquire one, because I didn't have one in the wardrobe. And then at the end of the week, I was walking in the Lady Mayor's show with a tricorn hat. So it was all very, sort of. It's been sort of a bit unusual, but enjoyable. And then going forward, I've to make sure that I don't. I can still fit into my dinner jacket by the end of the year. I'm doing a charitable challenge, so I'm cycling from Land's End to John O'Groats next summer to raise money for the charitable trust, but also for Solving Kids Cancer, which is sort of the something that where people will join me for a day. I'm doing it over a couple of weeks, either for cycling or just helping me, give me some moral support for supper, and doing that. So it's sort of very much. It's coming. You want to do something. You want to enjoy it, and before you know it, I think I've been in post almost a month now, and it feels like it's still very new and shiny.
Yeah.
But
we'll definitely send us some details about that charitable ride, and we'll publish them on our website and send details out to people and stuff. That sounds amazing.
I'd appreciate. I'd certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. So it sounds like that's taken up a lot of your time. Which is that taking you away from adjudication a bit? Yeah,
well, I mean, I knew it had been coming since lockdown. My practice is now only about 60% of what I do. So that was a conscious decision anyway. Not necessarily. It wasn't until 2023 that I knew that this was gonna happen. For real, anyway. I'd been asked before, and I kept on kicking it down the can down the road. But coming out of lockdown, I decided I wanted to work less anyway, and as a result of that, there was an itch that I needed that kept on scratching, but an academic itch. So I've embarked on some research now. So to prove my credentials, I did an LLM in international dispute resolution at Queen Mary, and that confirmed that I was still interested in doing a research project, and thankfully I could write academically, because it was very different from being a practitioner. Well, not so very different. It was different. And so I've now I'm in my third year of it was a 6-year part-time doctorate programme at Queen Mary. So that occupies about 40% of my time. So hopefully my PhD supervisors aren't listening, but if anything's taking the squeeze, it's my research. But I'm learning to discover that there's 24 hours in a day still, and 7 days in a week. And
are you able to say what you're researching?
Yeah, I'm researching. I mean, it's actually not in construction. It's in investment treaty arbitration.
Okay.
And because I didn't want it to be work, I wanted it to be a hobby.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to, one of the reasons coming out of lockdown for me not wanting to work so much was that the pace was relentless. Once we discovered working from home, electronic working, Zoom team meetings, when you couldn't actually go out anywhere, and you were dealing with dispute resolution and a fast track because most of my practice was adjudication. I just thought, well, this is unsustainable. But then after a bit of a sort of downtime, I realised I still really enjoy that, but not at the speed that I was doing it, and not at the pace. So now it's I think there's more of a balance, and I separate my research from my practice, and that I think has been positive.
Yeah, I think it's nice to do something that's slightly different to, maybe linked in a way, but different to what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, the procedural, in terms of the investment treaty arbitration is not dissimilar to commercial arbitration, which is what I know. But the subject matter in sort of it takes place in the field of sort of public international law. That is all very much. I'm a sponge, and I just want to know more and be an expert in that field. And hopefully by doing research and testing some basically answering a question that I think needs answering, or testing a proposition that I think needs testing, I'll be able to talk with a lot more knowledge than I had at the outset. But it just means that the brain is ticking over, and on a personal level. And I don't know how much, I'm not, I'm an expert, not a medical expert, but so my father's sort of he's got Alzheimer's, and you see the mental stimulation that helps him, and you think, well, okay, if I can keep the brain ticking over rather than doing same old, that's got to be a positive thing. So,
absolutely, I think my mum died just under 2 years ago with dementia, and it's made me think. About how do you stave it off? I mean, I know you can't really stave it off, but there are things you can do to at least make you feel like you might be.
Well, you certainly see the brain working and having to think and you think like that. So I think we're not getting any younger, so but I think we can look after.
I think we still look it though, to be honest, Matt. We're doing all right.
You did say this was audio, so that's an additive bonus.
I wouldn't dare say it if it was video. Not for me anyway. Not for myself. No, that's really interesting. And will there be a book coming out of that, do you think, at the end, or is it a paper?
I think I suspect not. I mean, obviously the doctorate will be 100,000 words tome. It's not. I can't. Again, be careful what I say, but academic work isn't necessarily an easy read, especially if you look at every footnote. So I think I've learned to realise that if you want to read academic work, you just have to read it first without looking at the footnotes, and then you go back and read it again and go to the footnotes. So it can be quite a painful read. So I don't know. Is to be honest, I suspect. Obviously Jonathan and I have written a book in construction adjudication, and there is another book which I can't really say too much about in the offing, but that will be more practice based than my academic work. And I think who knows? I mean, I certainly know that one of my supervisors, her doctorate formed the basis for a book that she published on how arbitrators decide cases in investment treaty arbitration. So who knows? The subject area that I'm looking at, it might be too narrow for a book, but never say never.
In the future, who knows? But that sort of moves us on nicely then into construction adjudication, and it sort of occurred to me, as I said earlier, I've wanted to get you on for a while, and largely to sort of have a chat about construction adjudication. I think from two angles. First of all, there'll be people listening to this who don't really know what it is, and there'll be people who know where it is but would be interested to know what goes through the mind of the adjudicator when they're in the decision making mode. So if you don't mind sort of giving us a potted view of both of those, that'd be really interesting, I think.
Okay. So I mean, I think probably the starting point is is to look at, and I'll talk about the United Kingdom specifically.
Yeah.
So I think for those who don't know, adjudication as a form of dispute resolution was introduced by the UK government in the late 90s in response to a report by Sir Michael Latham called Constructing the Team. And it was in response to what was available to the construction industry and what was affecting the construction industry in terms of cash flow and access to justice. So, long story short, the government decided, as a product of lobbying, I think, from the specialist contractors community, to regulate construction industry contracts in the UK in relation to payment, and also provide a means of a dispute resolution that was fast, quick, and to address the perception that, first of all, that there was cash flow issues, but more importantly, in terms of adjudication, there was a lack of ability of you lower down the supply chain to pull the trigger and get cash flowing. And so Sir Michael Latham recommended adjudication, and the government took that and ran with it. So it effectively said that every construction contract, as defined, there are certain exclusions, but just for present purposes, assume it's just commercial construction contracts. So every construction contract must have provide for the right for a party to refer a dispute to an adjudicator, who will issue a decision that will be temporarily binding. And what that means is that you've got to comply with the decision in the interim. If you don't like it, you can go to court or arbitration to have the whole thing dealt with over a longer, more expensive process. Or you can live with that, or you can talk and negotiate, mediate to resolve everything. So probably a couple of features. One was it's a unilateral right, so unlike arbitration, you don't both have to agree. If your contract doesn't provide for it, there's legislation that enables a party to a set of rules, if you like, that apply. Within, assuming you've got a dispute, within a relatively short period of time, you'd issue a notice to say, look, we've got a dispute, we want to go to adjudication. If you don't agree an adjudicator, you go off to a nominating body. So I've already mentioned the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, the CDEB, Hunt ADR. Somebody who holds themselves out as a nominating body will appoint someone generally within 5 days, assuming the application's made within 5 days of the notice. But the whole idea is to have the referral of the dispute lodged with the adjudicator and the other side within 7 days of the notice, and then the obligation is then for the adjudicator to reach a decision within 28 days. That period can be extended by up to 42 days by the referring party, or a longer period if both parties agree. So at the outset, I think probably the thoughts were that the adjudicator was replacing the engineer, the architect, the QS. The 28-day period, I think, coincides with the shortest calendar month. I think the theory was the project's going on, you don't agree on an interim certificate or extension of time claim, you get an adjudicator who replaces the engineer, architect, QS, you issue a decision, you plug it in, you comply with it, and you move on. What's actually happened is it's developed into quite a complex...
It's an industry within itself now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's morphed into fast-track arbitration. And probably because the people who populated those panels back in the late 90s had trained as construction industry arbitrators, and so they didn't know. Effectively, they were making it up. I wasn't involved from the get-go. I was called to the bar in 2001 and got on first panels in 2001. My background is as a quantity surveyor working for construction companies, and I started MCMS in 1996, wanting to be an arbitrator, not initially, but within a year of forming the business, and then adjudication. By the time I'd done my legal studies, adjudication had started, and I then got involved. But we were trained as arbitrators. We were given a weekend course on what this adjudication was, and it's evolved into a different beast perhaps than parties.
Yeah, I remember those days because I managed the first panels. So when the Institute Arbitrators set up its first panel and I think it was the first training provider at the time. It then trained others, like including RICS, who then had their own training. It pretty much started with the Institute. And of course, all the people who were doing the training and all the people who were on the initial panels were all members of the Institute, but they were all arbitrators, engineers, architects, etc., who were also members of all the other professional bodies in that area, and it all worked quite nicely because everyone was, which is quite unusual in ADR, everyone was working together to try and get something in place.
It was. I mean, it was. I can remember being relatively new to dispute resolution. The reason I did the law course was because I was told I was too young to be an arbitrator, and so but there was also, and it was good advice. I can remember in particular, it was Tony Bingham actually, who was renowned. He said, "Look, Matt, do this properly. You've got time. Get yourself legally qualified, and then it will take a while to break in." And then, say, adjudication had a lower entry level at the beginning. It was almost seen as cadet arbitration, a bit like the official referees were seen as cadet judges. And the advice was spot on, and the doors did open. And then, we the parties, the representatives, the adjudicators, effectively adopted this sequential system of and approached it as an arbitrator, effectively deciding, and probably that moves on to what's in the mind of the adjudicator. The UK is very much developed. Primarily, the success, I think, is attributable to the fact that the adjudication has got teeth, and the reason it's got teeth is that there's a specialist construction court, the TCC, the Technology and Construction Court, that effectively invented a procedure of enforcing adjudicators' decisions along the lines of, as long as the adjudicator's been properly appointed in that jurisdiction, acted procedurally fairly, and I mean that in the legal sense, and has answered the right question, then we will enforce. So it was very much, as long as you tick all those boxes, we will enforce. So pay up, and you don't like it, you go off. So in terms of the way adjudicators have been, probably with the background that they came from, but then also the courses that the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, the RICS, have put into place, it was modelled on the arbitration diplomas. So we're going to teach you on the law, we're going to teach you about the law of adjudication, so you're going to understand the Act and the regulations. We're going to teach you on case management, which is fast track, and then we're going to teach you on decision writing. And the way that it's being taught is very much is that you're applying the civil evidential principles. So you decide things based on balance of probabilities. You adopt the philosophy that, or the principle that the party that asserts must prove, and they need to persuade you on the balance of probabilities that their case is preferable to the other. So, and that probably makes sense in a time-limited procedure, because if it was inquisitorial and the adjudicator was going to come up with an opinion and the right answer, whatever that is, it might take more work than listening to the arguments, looking at the evidence and deciding on the balance of probabilities. So in terms of what what's in the mind of the adjudicator, I suppose there's a couple of things. Is that the time, I think the impact of time shouldn't be underestimated, the time pressures on the adjudicator. So the adjudicator wants to issue their decision and comply with its obligation, or their obligation to issue their decision on time, and they want it to be enforceable to the best that they can have control over it. So they want to make sure that they do everything that they're obliged to do in terms of giving the parties a fair crack and disposing of everything that they need to deal with. So the objective is, yes, reach that decision, but you also want the losing party, especially, but both parties, to understand why they've lost. So it's unusual not to have to provide reasons. So
unlike arbitration, is it you don't have to provide reasons?
You don't have to, unless one of the parties requests, typically, or the rules say. So under the scheme for construction contracts, which is the procedural rules that would apply if the parties don't have a procedure, it says that the adjudicator shall provide reasons if one of the parties requests it. Invariably they do. And so you've got to think about, okay, I need to be able to communicate the decision, tell people what I've decided, but I also need to explain to them why. So if we think about what's in the mind of the adjudicator, they'll need to have the ability to identify the questions that need answering. Then they'll need to also communicate the reasons why, and it's quite difficult. I think probably doing the job of an adjudicator, drafting a decision, is a bit like learning to swim or riding a bike. It's not something that easily lends itself to learning from a book.
Yeah.
So you might understand the theory, but you get in and do it. So I think it's one of the challenges of teaching is, okay, how do I teach somebody to provide a reason? It's difficult. It's a bit like describing the elephant as well. It's like, well, I know one when I see one. How do I describe it?
It must be hard, because when you're teaching, when I'm teaching mediators, it's mediation is something that you do, and you communicate verbally. And whereas when you're writing a decision, it's a different process, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it must be, I would imagine, maybe it's because I'm used to teaching mediators now, but I can imagine it must be harder to teach someone to write a decision.
It was quite difficult. I think it is I think it's a practical subject like mediation. I think doing the job. I don't know when Jonathan and I were looking at writing the book on adjudicating construction engineering disputes, we wanted it very much to be a sort of a course manual, as it were.
Yeah.
And to try and say, well, look, this is one way of doing it, but there are, people will be different in terms of how they decide. Some people might, and we've all got our biases.
Yeah.
So, I guess in terms of what's in the mind of the adjudicator, you're thinking you've got to do the job. You've got to be able to make a decision, and you also want to protect yourself and protect the decision in terms of the output, which will be the decision. So I think for me, anything the parties can do to make my job easier. So is the case readily understandable? Are you telling me a credible story? Are you pointing me to the documents that support what you're saying? Are you explaining, not in noddy, but at an appropriate level, so I can follow it? And if you can help me write the decision for me, or give me a compelling reason to support or to prefer your argument, then fantastic. I think it's an element of the representatives having to, knowing who the tribunal is, and that's probably easier for the more, if an adjudicator is quite prolific or busy, then counsel, lawyers, or people who've got past experience will have an idea of what works and what doesn't.
Coming soon, the newest course in the All About series, All About Adjudication. A straightforward introduction to how construction adjudication works in practice. Perfect for anyone looking to learn the basics or refresh their understanding. Pre-register today by emailing greg@huntadr.com.
I think that's a human level. And probably, again, if I think about mediation, the same applies. It's people spend a lot of time thinking about who's the right horse for this particular course. Adjudication is probably less agreement than not, because you've got this unilateral. I'm going to give you a notice of adjudication, and instinctively it's like, oh no, we're now in adversarial mode. I'm not going to agree to anything, or I might not know the process, so I'm just going to put my head in the sand. And next thing I know, I'm going to get a letter from this chap called Molloy that says, by the way, I've been appointed as adjudicator, I look forward to the referral, here's my terms, and you've got 7 days to defend. And it's like, oh wow, what's happened here? Whereas I guess if you've got more experienced representatives or parties, potentially people who've had their fingers burnt before, they might say, well, okay, let's actually pick up the phone and say, if we're not going to avert this, let's agree somebody who we're both comfortable with. Because I think it's a bit like the analogy with the sports referee. You respect the decision if you understand, if you understand the rationale for you understand the rationale for their decisions, but also you feel like you've had a fair crack.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I think it.
You're talking about rugby referees there, not football referees.
Well, yeah, that's the no, exactly. In fact, that I was just thinking of actually that I was at the weekend. My eldest lad is studying at University of South Wales, and I was in the Millennium Stadium or whatever it's called now, the Principality. Yeah. Watching Wales and the All Blacks at the weekend, and I was thinking about the rugby referees, but I also, knowing that I was going to speak to you, it brought back horrendous memories of 2006 and Gerrard, who couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo in the Euros, but hit an absolute worldie in the last minute of extra time to take us to penalties, and we were first loser on that occasion against Liverpool. So it still stings a little bit. Although
sounds like it does.
Although to be fair, at least then, 2006, my boy was only 2, but he got to go to Prague a couple of years ago to see West Ham win anything. He thought that was normal. I said, well, it was 43 years since we've won anything. I've experienced anything. So, but it was worth the wait. Yeah, it's not like you guys who are winning everything.
Well, it'd be nice to win a game at the minute, but I'm sure it'll rectify itself. I'm confident-ish. Yeah. That's really interesting, Matt. It's London Arbitration Week next week. Have you got any formal roles?
Yeah, we've got there's a symposium that I'm going to be attending things, but we've actually got a symposium on the Tuesday evening, the 2nd of December, which is is Keating Chambers are sponsoring that, but it's a Worshipful Company event. Yeah. But we're looking at the role of London in international arbitration, and that's a sort of we've got a few sort of keynote.
I think I'm down for that one. Actually, I've booked on to about 10 things. So
I think the keynote is Mr. Justice Fernando Farrell, who's the former sort of TCC judge in charge. We've got some of the dispute resolution organisations there speaking as well. So that's our an event that we're doing during. We're not. It's not a formal London Arbitration Week event, but it's taking place in that week. But I'll be attending events in a sort of personal capacity.
I'm sure we'll bump into each other at one or two then.
Yeah.
It's not normally my thing. I don't normally go to stuff, but I've got to this year. I'm going to go.
It's interesting. I mean, because the one of the other one of the objectives, probably lockdown, I started to look more internationally in terms of building on the skills that I sort of experienced in the UK. But I suppose probably a couple of points. One is that construction adjudication is being exported and has been exported to other countries. So it's been quite I've enjoyed speaking to other countries or lawyers from other countries who are thinking about introducing adjudication or have introduced adjudication. So the more recent people, Hong Kong, Canada are more recent. I know Australia's been there for a while. But I went to South Africa relatively recently to talk about lessons learned from the UK. So that's been quite interesting. But the other thing was, it's like all these things, that I thought I've grown up with adjudication. I trained as arbitration. There's not much of it domestically. I better refresh my memory of arbitration. So I went to the Child Institute to do an international diploma, just as a refresher. So international arbitration rather than domestic, which is what I did train. And before I knew it, I was appointed as presiding arbitrator on a dispute in Dubai. So that was the best way of learning. But I have been attending. Some of it's to fulfil my academic sort of needs, attending arbitration conferences. I mean, I think you could probably just go from one conference to conference across the world. And it's a bit of a merry-go-round. And I think what I've learned is that I think you need to ask yourself, well, why am I going to this event? Is it knowledge? Is it networking? And do I actually get work there? My thoughts are, in terms of the international market, is that you're more likely to get work because of people who know you from another field. And so it may be that you're travelling somewhere and you see lots of people that are actually going from the UK, but they're all in the same place at the same time. And then you might sort of develop work. I mean, like I say, my attendance in conferences has been to go to talks regarding investment treaty arbitration to increase my knowledge, but then also going to some construction industry events just to, be visible, speak to people, and
they're great to bump in. I always remember I was on a trip with CEDA to Hong Kong, and there was a lawyer that was based on New Square, which is just sort of 100 yards away from where CEDA were on Fleet Street, and we could never ever meet up. Our diaries never ever got the sort of right time. And he said, "Oh, Greg, I believe you're in Hong Kong. So am I." And it's that sort of thing. You bump into people who you don't normally sort of have the opportunity to spend time with, and it's a great opportunity. And at conferences and things, I think that's one of the bigger values. It's not anything that's planned; it's who you just happen to bump into that you've not seen for 20 years. Or
I agree. I mean, so Cassie and I, my colleague, went out to Dubai. It was my second time going to Dubai Arbitration Week, and there's quite a strong UK Middle East connection. Lots of UK professionals out there, and it was extremely useful in terms of the people we met. And also there is actually, I think the events that go on. There's the educational events and the sort of more traditional wining, dining things, but there's also the sort of more the modern way of networking, if that's the right word. But so Cassie and I at 7 o'clock were on a beach going for a run with the arbitration runners. The next day at 6 o'clock I was out in the desert going on a bike ride that was sponsored with 70 other people, and it was, you think actually that was it just is a sort of a shift, if you like, away from the sort of it's not all about late nights and whatever. It's actually some different types of event, and coming back and think actually you've developed a relationship or rekindled a relationship. Or, I've seen people I didn't realise that I know from ages ago who are now in Dubai, and they've been there for 15 years, and they would recall events or cases that we might have been involved with.
And the other great thing on that as well, because like most of the sort of mediator training we do these days, for example, is online. So you spend a week with someone, but you've never actually physically met them. And then you go to an event and they're there, and it's like, oh God, I feel like I really know this person, but it's the first time I've shook hands with them, or first time I've actually sort of stood near them, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And then you find someone who, you know, you only see the sort of chest upwards on a video, and then you meet them in real life. And I always remember one person that was a lady, and she was about 7 foot tall, and it was just really threw me. I just didn't expect it at all.
No, that 100%. I mean, I had people that I've done quite a bit of online training to people in the Middle East, and in fact, I had one chap. He said, "Oh, I'm currently on your course on expert determination." And I was like, "Oh wow!" I said, "I only saw you on a little screen." But I also remember, and it was my lead. One of my supervisors from my PhD is a lady called Nora Gallagher. Everyone knows Nora Gallagher. She's quite tall. Right. Now, I'd seen her on a screen for about a year and a half. And when I first met her, it was like she towered over me.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of don't take this the wrong way. I didn't realise how tall you were. Yeah. And it's that can be an advantage when you're not the tallest, I guess, if you're on screen. but yeah, I think that I think maybe we lost that fact that we are social animals, and actually that in-person element. I mean, I certainly for an arbitration, for the main hearing, I would prefer to do that in person. I like meetings in adjudication, but a lot of people don't, because they've not grown up with it. I think if that, professionally, and mediation, I much prefer to do a mediation in person for the actual mediation. I think the prep calls online has been great in terms of actually making the time when you're with people more efficient, because you've built up some rapport by having these online meetings, which you wouldn't have done before. It might have been a telephone conference. So I think there's a place for it. But I think I hadn't. It's like, I suppose you don't miss something until it's taken away, and I guess when you
I've got a weird one on Thursday. There's we've done 3 or 4 AI for mediators courses so far, and they've all been online. But on Thursday, I'm in Belfast, and it's the first in-person one. And it's like, well, as the person who's running it, I'm thinking the dynamics are going to be so different, because actually a lot of the time people need to be on the computer, and when you're doing it online, everyone's just, you share screen and all the rest of it. But I'm actually going to have a classroom full of people who are needing to be on the laptops, and that's just going to change the dynamic of delivery. And so really it's slightly different because of that. So I always prefer training in person, but this time I think, well, is this course actually more suited to be done online anyway, and is it going to be slightly odd doing it in person?
I mean, I think the probably the one course I'm just about to hand over, but I've done 31. It's going to be the 31st cohort of decision writing. Decision writing modules on the RICS mod, and the RICS diploma. That was all in person up to COVID, and then it changed. And in some ways, I like it, so I don't need to get up before 6 o'clock to catch a train to go up to the Midlands. I could have gone up the night before, but I invariably didn't. But it made quite a long day. But the coffee chats, the lunch, sitting down with lunch, speaking, was actually a big part of it, and I missed that online. But then online, it's sometimes it's quite easy. It's nice, convenient. You know that you're in your office. So I think it depends what time. It depends what mood I'm in and how much other work I've got. But I think if I did have a preference, in person, I like. But then again, the last decision writing competency training I did, everyone had to bring their laptop because there was drafting exercises to do. So, it's I mean, it's. I think there's a balance and there's a place for both. And in terms of the time costs and probably environmental benefits, although I'm reminded, I understand that the data storage requirements and the heat that's generated from electronic communications isn't the golden ticket in terms of the environment. But I think there are positives in terms of time cost of flying across the world for a procedural meeting that lasts an hour. You'd be bonkers to do that now.
Well, Matt, I will hopefully see you next week at some point. Am I allowed to approach you now in your new role? I mean, have you got security guards and stuff?
No, well, I think it's 3 bows forward, 3 bows backwards.
Yeah.
But I'm always. I'd like to think. I did say at my speech after the installation, I've got 3 strong women who are keeping me grounded.
Yeah.
And that one I work with, one I live with, and one's the immediate past master. So for all 3 of them, make sure they don't get too much above my station. But I do enjoy people bowing to me and calling me master. And it's only I've only got 11 months left now, so I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts anyway.
Well, look, I'm a Doctor Who nerd, and I can finally say I've had the master on my on the podcast now.
Excellent.
So if you stand next to a TARDIS, I'll bow to you, but otherwise I won't.
I'm sure it can be arranged. I think there is a TARDIS must be a TARDIS on the streets of London somewhere.
There's got to be one somewhere.
Yeah. It was a pleasure, Greg. Thank you so much.
No, really, really chuffed to have you on. Good to see you again.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, Matt. See you later.
Cheers, buddy. Yeah.
You need to mediate, so don't be late. Arbitrate to enhance your state. Adjudication is your road to salvation. Hunt ADI's your destination. He's working from home. Yeah, he's working from home. For dispute resolution, there's only one solution.